Imagine remembering a childhood event in vivid detail. You know exactly where you were, what you were wearing, who was standing next to you. You can even recall how you felt in that moment. But what if that memory never actually happened? Not that you remembered it incorrectly, not that you forgot a few details. What if the entire event was completely fictional? It sounds like science fiction, but decades of scientific research have shown that human memory is far less reliable than most people believe. In fact, some of our memories may be entirely false. For a long time, scientists believed memory worked like a video camera. Events were recorded, stored, and later played back exactly as they happened. If someone asked about an event, you simply accessed the recording and replayed it. But modern research revealed something surprising. That idea is wrong. Today, psychologists understand memory as a process of reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you are not replaying a recording. You are rebuilding the memory. And every reconstruction creates an opportunity for change. One of the most influential researchers in this field was American psychologist Elizabeth Loftus. For decades, she studied memory, eyewitness testimony, and the ways our minds can distort reality. Her findings changed psychology and even influenced legal systems around the world. In 1974, Elizabeth Loftus and her colleague John Palmer conducted one of the most famous experiments in the history of psychology. Participants watched footage of a car accident. Afterward, they were asked a simple question, but there was a catch. Different groups heard different wording. One group was asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? Another group was asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? The only difference was a single word, but that one word changed everything. Participants who heard the word smashed estimated significantly higher speeds. But the most interesting part happened a week later. The researchers returned and asked another question. Did you see any broken glass? The problem was that there was no broken glass in the video. Yet participants who heard the word smashed were far more likely to report seeing broken glass. Their memory had changed because of a single word. This study became one of the earliest and strongest demonstrations of what scientists now call the misinformation effect. Information introduced after an event can alter how that event is remembered. In other words, we don't simply remember the past, we reconstruct it. At this point, you might think memory distortion only affects small details, maybe the speed of a car, maybe a piece of broken glass, but could an entire memory be created from nothing? To answer that question, Elizabeth Loftus conducted another famous study in the 1990s. A study that became known as the Lost in the Mall experiment. Researchers first contacted participants' family members and collected several real childhood events. Then they created 4 stories for each participant. 3 were real. 1 was completely fake. The false story claimed that the participant had gotten lost in a shopping mall as a child. Participants were not told that one of the stories was fictional. They were simply asked to remember as much as they could about each event. The results were astonishing. About 25% of participants accepted the false story as real. Many even added their own details. They described how they felt, who helped them, what the surroundings looked like. Some participants created entire scenes around an event that never happened. This experiment demonstrated something remarkable. The human brain can create not just false details, it can create entire false memories. And once created, those memories can feel completely real. Research did not stop there. In later studies, scientists successfully implanted other false memories. Some participants came to believe they had been attacked by a wild animal as children. Others believed they had taken a ride in a hot air balloon. Events that had never occurred somehow became part of their personal history. At the same time, researchers were studying the structure of memory itself. One of the most famous methods became known as the DRM paradigm. The name comes from researchers James Dees, Henry Roediger III, and Kathleen McDermott. In this experiment, participants were shown lists of related words. For example, bed, pillow, dream, nap, night, rest, tired, sleepy. But one important word was intentionally missing: sleep. Afterward, participants were asked which words they remembered seeing. A surprising number confidently reported seeing the word sleep, but it had never appeared on the list. Their brains filled in the missing piece. Because all the words were strongly associated with sleep, the mind generated a memory that never existed. This experiment has been replicated many times across different countries and cultures. The results remain remarkably consistent. So far, this might sound like an interesting psychological curiosity, but the real consequences appear when false memories enter the real world. For decades, courts treated eyewitness testimony as one of the strongest forms of evidence. The reasoning seemed obvious. If someone saw an event with their own eyes, surely they could accurately describe it, but memory research told a different story. In numerous cases, eyewitnesses confidently identified suspects who were later proven innocent. Scientists discovered that confidence and accuracy are not the same thing. Someone can be absolutely certain and still be completely wrong. Because of these findings, many countries changed the way police conduct interviews and eyewitness identifications. Researchers realized that even the wording of a question can influence what a witness remembers, but an important question remains. If memory is so unreliable, why did evolution allow it to be this way? The answer is that the brain was never designed to perfectly record reality. Its primary goal has always been survival. Our ancestors needed to make rapid decisions, identify predators, find food, recognize allies and enemies. In those situations, speed mattered more than perfect accuracy. As a result, memory works more like a skilled editor than a video recorder. It keeps important information, removes unnecessary details, and fills in missing gaps using educated guesses. Most of the time, this system works surprisingly well, but sometimes those guesses become mistakes. One of the most fascinating discoveries in neuroscience involves a process called reconsolidation. For many years, scientists believed that once a memory was stored, it remained fixed. Research later revealed that this assumption was wrong. Whenever you recall a memory, it temporarily becomes unstable again. During that period, new information can be added. When the brain stores the memory once more, the updated version replaces the old one. In simple terms, every time you remember the past, you may be slightly rewriting it, and over time, those small changes can accumulate. Another phenomenon connected to memory distortion is the famous Mandela effect. The term originated because many people falsely remembered that Nelson Mandela died in prison during the 1980s. In reality, he was released, later became president of South Africa, and lived for many years afterward. Similar examples appear everywhere. People often misremember movie quotes, brand logos, historical events, even basic facts they are convinced are correct. Some have proposed exotic explanations involving parallel universes. Scientists, however, offer a much simpler explanation. The brain relies on mental shortcuts to process information efficiently, and sometimes those shortcuts create shared mistakes. Now we arrive at the most unsettling question. Can a memory actually be implanted into someone's mind? Research suggests that, to some extent, the answer is yes, not in the dramatic way science fiction movies portray it. Scientists cannot simply upload any memory they want, but they can increase the likelihood of certain false memories forming, especially when the source is trusted, the information is repeated, detailed descriptions are provided, and the event itself seems believable. This is one reason psychologists are extremely careful when interviewing children, eyewitnesses, and trauma victims. Leading questions can unintentionally create memories that never existed. Perhaps the biggest misconception about memory is that forgetting is a flaw. From an evolutionary perspective, forgetting can actually be useful. If the brain stored every detail of every day, decision-making would become inefficient and overwhelming. Instead, the brain constantly removes information it considers less important. This allows us to focus on what matters most, but that efficiency comes with a cost: the creation of incomplete, distorted, and sometimes entirely false memories. Today, we know that human memory is not a perfect recording device. The car crash experiment showed that a single word can alter a memory. The Lost in the Mall experiment showed that entire childhood events can be manufactured. The DRM experiment showed that people confidently remember words they never saw. And reconsolidation research revealed that recalling a memory can change it. Perhaps the most disturbing part is that false memories do not feel false. To the person experiencing them, they feel exactly like real memories. The emotions are real. The images are real. The certainty is real. So the question is not whether your memory makes mistakes. Science answered that long ago. The real question is this: if your brain can rewrite the past, if it can remember events that never happened, and if your identity is built upon your memories, how much of the person you believe yourself to be is based on memories that never happened exactly the way you remember them?